Good morning, everyone. So we are the Chapter 3 reporter. I am Mr. Janelle Maharas and my partner is Anthon Montabato. So in Chapter 3, we will be talking about cultures and rationalities. But before going on, let us first discover or know the goals or the objectives of this unit. So at the end of this chapter, the students should be able to discuss how culture or rationality shapes people's perception of reality. Second, state the effects of culture and person's perception on gender and sexuality. And lastly, explain how rationalities shape sexism and discrimination. Before going on, let us first ponder two things. What for you defines maleness and femaleness? Next, what do you think is the difference between gender and sex, and how is this difference determined by your physical bodies and by your culture? So in our topic, we will be talking about two concepts. First, instinct and culture. Second is cultures can change. So let's proceed with the first concept, which is instinct and culture. So human beings, unlike animals, are not heavily dependent on instinct. Certainly, instinctual aspects are present in specific actions such as breathing, making sounds when surprised or shocked, upright walking, or choosing between fight or flight. So we humans, we possess instinctual aspects. So what is instinctual aspects? So instinctual aspects are specific behaviors that is done or shown by a specific person below the conscious level. So like what I am doing now, I'm talking to you and you guys are listening to me, or maybe writing down there, or maybe doing your personal things. That is what we call instinct. So more than these instinct-driven actions, humans are distinct from other beings because they possess systems of meaning. So what makes us very different to other living creatures, especially the animals? Because we possess systems of meanings. And what is systems of meanings? Systems of meanings is being able to identify what is right or wrong and what is good or evil. So what for you is the definition of instinct? So instinct is defined in the book that is a behavior mediated by reactions below the conscious level. So as I have mentioned earlier, instinct is a behavior that is shown by a person below the conscious level. Okay, that is what we call instinct. So this frame of understanding is what Clifford Geertz calls culture. Culture is a system of symbols that allows people to give meaning to experience. So culture is a system of symbols that allows people to give meaning to experience. So in our society, there is a specific culture that is being observed, right? For example, ha amon school dito Leyte, ha East Visayan Adventist Academy. Ang amon culture na to, usually Wednesday night, nagsisimba kami at church, and Friday nagsisimba kami at church. Before kami muli amon mga dormitories or amon mga balay, kultura namon nga makaduha gate. Kumbaga ang tawag dito, touch the gate. So after yun amon sipag mayakan namon mga classmates, let's go to the gate, mag-touch the gate kita. Asya ito ang culture nga to namon. And it is being observed until now. So culture provides people with the systems of shortcuts for meaningful interpretations and responses. When a specific culture is being observed by a specific community, then you really have to adopt it. Okay? Because a culture is handed down through generations. Everyone knows that doctors cure you when you are sick, that profit is always good, that women raise children, and that men should set time aside to drink with their friends. So culture is dependent on the meaningful interpretations and responses to a person. Next, this is what culture does. It takes the place of instinct to give people a quick representation and response based on collective experience of the things that confront them. So cultures can change. Culture is superior to instinct because it is malleable or adaptable. It is both learned and inherited and readily determines how one understands acts. So culture is superior than instinct because it is adaptable. So because instinct is based on our emotion, baga added to yato na kalugarin nyo na, nafe-feel ito nato an instinct. Unlike an culture, it is adaptable. Kumbaga ha society hiya or to the community around us. So culture, it is both learned and inherited and readily determines how one understands and acts. So, learned and inherited. For example, ang ating mga balay, di ba? As Christians, we go to church every Sunday or Saturday. So, even if against sa imo will na dili ka karoy sumimba, because that culture is strictly observed, then you really have to go. You have to adapt. You give a response. Next is, it also changes when its framing of reality is no longer useful. It is the main difference between culture and instinct. So what is the difference between culture and instinct? So because of framing of reality, when a specific situation here and now is no longer available, that is what makes instinct and culture different. The problem in this setup, however, is that when cultural systems orient people to act in a certain way that is harmful, individuals tend to act destructively towards others without conscious decision. So what makes a culture complicated? When we show specific actions that will show harmful effects to others. Okay? This thought is worrisome because it means what the unjust things we do are not the acts of our free will. Since, for example, in a specific community, di ba? Alin ka na kung dinyakan kanina, example, habalay. Going to church is strictly observed. So, since it is strictly observed, tas karuwag mo ada kalabalay, hindi na mo karuwag mo po, hain mo mga kag-anak, you really have to go because it is strictly observed. Even if against an imo will, you go. That is what is called culture. On the other hand, it is hopeful because it means that we behave the way we do due to systems that can be changed, and thus we can work together to change these systems. After all, the superiority of the systems of culture versus instinct lies in the fact that cultures can be transformed without waiting or genetic mutation to take effect. Culture can change when its system of meaning no longer serves human flourishing. We must understand how culture can be changed so that the world becomes more just to women. So for further information, my partner Anthony will continue the report.
To illustrate how culture can be changed so that the world becomes more just to women, let us examine microaggression as a form of violence. But first, let's define microaggression. Microaggression refers to hostile, derogatory, or negative racial slights that can cause potentially harmful or unpleasant psychological impacts to targeted person or group. It is a subtle form of aggression that works against historically marginalized social groups. Microaggressions against gender involves everyday acts that send subtle messages about one's supposed inabilities and roles because of gender. Some effects of microaggressions include internalized emotions such as guilt, resentment, anger, as well as negative implications on relationships. Examples of microaggression includes instances in which boys are teased for engaging in culturally feminine activities such as playing house or playing with dolls. Girls are teased for engaging in sports. Men are told to man up if they need to be tougher. Women are admonished or ostracized when they are too ambitious. Thus, bakla, the term for homosexual male, is used to berate and control men's behavior. The statement para kang babae, when used in men, is used to challenge masculinity and to show that being woman-like is bad, thus demeaning women as a gender. Although seemingly harmless, these instances are a form of correction that ensures that people do not stray from the culture's definition of the good. In this case, men as strong and masculine is considered good and men as feminine is bad. To illustrate this case, let's examine this example. Sian's group of all-male friends make sexist jokes at the expense of women, stating that being a woman is a disability and that women are less logical than men. He shared that while he himself is a pro-women and a feminist ally, he gets pressured into making these jokes to bond with his black mates. This picture is similar to what is called Boys Club, that uses banters to marginalized women to keep its power and advertently remind women that they are only allowed in certain spaces. Violations of this space merit reprimand through jokes that are essentially sexist and hurtful. Microaggressions is also a form of social control. This form of control can be understood as violent because it curtails individuals' freedom by limiting people in narrow definitions that may not contribute to human flourishing. However, those who commit acts of microaggression do not in any way feel that they have violated the rights of others because they are acting according to the good defined by their culture. Often, they cannot understand the world according to any other reasoning. It shows how culture can determine the way we act toward others and ourselves without even a critical awareness of what we do and why we do it. In the realm of women and their rights, this scenario illustrates the necessity for critical reflection. At present, there is an awareness that women are unfairly treated in society such that their human flourishing, even their basic survival as human beings, is threatened. Thus, everyone has to take a closer look at the culture and systems that define social structures in order to bring about genuine development to all the people of the world, especially oppressed women. How cultures get in the way of and support the flourishing of women should be understood. Cultural systems should be reflected on. It is difficult to change culture. How do people change the way they perceive things and the way they value or disvalue things? Humans are born into their ways of thinking. Sexist or misogynist thinking is inherited, which is why sexist jokes or harassment come so naturally to some. And so we must ask ourselves how to transform destructive ways of existing. One important way is by consensually proposing universal standards by which societies can be measured. Ideally, these universal standards are put forward by international bodies such as United Nations. If the people of the world can understand that there are certain benchmarks of human and just behavior, then nations and their governments could be criticized and held accountable for violating universally agreed upon rules. Today, with regard to human beings in general and women in particular, there are two such universal standards. One is already accepted by most countries and another is being proposed by a philosopher, especially for her advocacy of women's rights.